Okay. Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your breakfast. We have lots of coffee. You have to stay awake for me. Okay, as Ted mentioned, this is building off of prior work by my colleague Erin White, who was previously the Director of Research at STEMconnector, and her State of STEM report, I believe, is available on our website. The research focus for this report is asking the question, what are the factors that are impacting the current state of the STEM landscape, and what are the challenges that need to be addressed? What are the opportunities for advancing progress, and what are the trends that are making a difference? Our methodology includes reviewing the literature, and so far we've looked over 100 citations. We've conducted about 50 interviews, I think more than that now, and we've completed about 10 site visits and attended 7 events. And this part of my presentation is going to echo what you've heard throughout this STEMconnector Summit, the challenges that we've all experienced during the pandemic. So right now, as we realize, the pandemic has transformed the STEM landscape, serving as the impetus for innovation in how work is experienced. As highlighted in a recent report by the McKinsey Global Institute, the physical dimension of work has shifted to a combination of online and in-person work environments, and this hybrid approach is very common now in education. This dramatic change in instructional formats, though, has limited social interaction and opportunities for hands-on learning for our students. In addition, a lack of supportive social environments, along with teacher shortages, have exacerbated the stress and mental health issues that our teachers and students are experiencing. One of our interviewees was telling us, and it's someone you might know, that all of the faculty in her department are getting therapy through a wellness program that their university is offering, and they are grateful for that, but it just goes to show the need that we need to support our faculty at this time. And that's not even to go to the length of what the students need. So building on Dr. White's State of STEM report, where she developed a framework around 5 gaps in education, I'm going to walk through that framework for you right now. So our research questions: what are the factors impacting the STEM landscape? Leveraged a framework developed by STEMconnector that identified 5 STEM gaps that influence the state of STEM. Challenges impacting the state of STEM include gaps in STEM skills that are needed in the workforce, a lack of students and adult learners seeing themselves in STEM, which we call the belief gap, the post-secondary gap, which we're seeing is a lack of enrollment and even having students show up in post-secondary learning environments, the geographic gap, and the demographic gap, which is very prevalent prevalence of a lack of women and underrepresented minorities in STEM. So let's talk about each of those gaps a little bit. The fundamental skills gap has really suffered and been amplified by COVID. Missed learning opportunities due to online-only instruction have led to a decrease in academic performance, and some studies that my colleagues have researched found for most students it's about maybe a 2 to 3 month learning loss in reading and math, and for other students from underrepresented groups it might be a 3 to 4 month learning loss that students have suffered from the pandemic. The belief gap is based on the idea if you can see it, you can become it. But due to a lack of mentors and role models from diverse backgrounds, many students do not see themselves in STEM roles. Their parents also lack awareness of what STEM careers are available to the students. They are not sure how to answer the question, what does an engineer do? What is it like to work in a clean room? What credentials do I need to become a biotechnology manufacturing technician? As our Deputy Secretary Cindy Martin noted yesterday, students need to believe that they belong in STEM in order to succeed. I'm a STEM Education Research Fellow at Cal State Monterey Bay, out in good old California, and we're experiencing a post-secondary gap that's been ongoing for the last 2 years, where enrollment is down and students are just coming back to campus. And what this causes as a ripple effect is lower salaries for faculty, there's no funding for increases, and that goes to Diane's comment earlier about a lack of motivation. If they're not getting rewarded for their work, faculty aren't as motivated to support our students. So the post-secondary gap fluctuates, I think, between whether the students are there to even be experiencing learning and if the faculty are showing up ready to teach. I believe one study showed that enrollment in post-secondary was down 3.3% in 2020, and I think it dropped even lower in the spring of 2021 by 1.6 million. So that's a little on the sad side. The geographic gap refers to issues with access to jobs and training in areas that are not local to industry and academic institutions, as well as rural areas that lack stable internet. And if you live in West Virginia, or you drive through West Virginia and you can't get to your location because your phone doesn't have the GPS to tell you where you're going, you can relate to that issue. Recent supply chain issues, inflation, and the gas prices that from the gas crisis that we're having impede access to academic and other resources our students and teachers in remote rural areas need. Though online resources are available, jobs that some students seek are not available or accessible where they live. And finally, the demographic gap is a result of a lack of diversity among STEM workers and post-secondary faculty. There's a disparity in employment in STEM jobs based on race, gender, and socioeconomic backgrounds. As you'll read about in our publication, The State of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in STEM, written by my colleague, Jessica Johnson. I would like to give a shout out to Jessica Johnson for her work in this area. She found that COVID has had a substantial impact on women in the workforce. Many women were abruptly laid off or were forced to stay home with their children as schools and childcare centers closed down during the pandemic. In the spring of 2020, approximately 5.1 million American mothers stopped working for pay, and as of 2021, 1.3 million of them remain out of work. The state of women in the workplace changed drastically as the pandemic progressed, and women became even more burned out. At the beginning of the COVID pandemic, only 1 in 4 women considered leaving the workforce or downshifting their career. But unfortunately, this has increased to 1 in 3 women as of 2021. So let's get to the positive side. Let's use an asset-based approach to think through where are we now and where are we going. Though the pandemic challenged us to adapt and innovate the future of STEM, today we have an optimistic opportunity with the potential to create transformative change. And we heard this morning about all kinds of momentum that we can build off of, given the CHIPS Act and other investments from companies that are supporting investments in STEM. The pandemic promoted hybrid instructional approaches that are becoming the norm, while a blend of in-person and virtual internships and online mentoring are now an option for students that may not have previously had those opportunities. So that's not all a bad thing. A virtual internship at a company like 3M is better than no internship if you don't have access to one. And the infrastructure that's been created that allows you to attend conferences like this today through streaming or through non-transportation required purposes, this is really a different world. So as you know, you've all probably been doing a lot of virtual events and maybe are a little tired of them, but those people who couldn't travel or may not even be healthy enough to travel are benefiting from those opportunities. This gives me a chance to shout out some of the people in the room who are creating the fabric that is really establishing our next level of innovation in STEM. And so for K-12 opportunities, I'd just like to highlight a short list of some of the programs that are really making a difference, including Tech Bridge for Girls, Amgen's biotech experience, Stride K-12, which Jennifer O'Shea is right over here, and she can tell you a lot more about it than I can. Lab Exchange, which is an open access platform that offers any kind of online training that you might desire, but also provides internships and other kinds of opportunities. And then the Arlington Independent School District, who we interviewed for our report, offers several different STEAM programs that start in pre-K and promote schools from elementary through high school. And I believe there's a lot more to learn from them as well. Ted mentioned that we got connected through Verizon Innovative Learning. It's a program that I evaluated for 5 years while I was at SRI International. And that program at the time was involved with 42 HBCUs and rural community colleges and offered girls and minority males STEM opportunities that they would never have received before had they not had that chance. It had VR, AR, 3D printing, robotics, all kinds of STEM activities. So I always will have a place in my heart for what Verizon Innovative Learning is doing across the country, and they're doing way more now than they did when I first started with them. Of course, we have a lot of appreciation for those of you in the room that are part of the STEMX network that is helping be a partner of this event today. And these larger networks play a huge role in connecting people, not just through STEMconnector, but through their partners back in their states as well. Filament Games offers a new innovative technique for game-based learning that we can partner with, and they did a partnership with First Robotics that's just amazing. When people couldn't go to First Robotics competitions and build robots physically during the COVID pandemic, Filament Games stepped in and partnered with First Robotics to help create a simulation program so that the students could still build robots and work on them. And finally, Illumina DNA Day in April is another chance to expose students to a part of STEM that they may never hear of until they're in college. So as you just heard on our panel with Corteva Agriscience, if you need to learn more about that, which I encourage you to, you can speak to Rhonda further, because these programs that are members of STEMconnector are really making a difference. There we go. And I'd like to move on to post-secondary opportunities, which, of course, last night you were at Florida International University's facilities. They have a Transformation Institute that you should learn more about. You can talk to Carlos about that. The University of California, UC Davis, is here, that you can speak to them about their Avenue E program funded by Chevron. Tuskegee, if you haven't talked to Olga, you can talk to her while she's here. They have a fantastic ag industry study tour that my colleague Jennifer Johnson actually went on when Jessica Johnson, she went on a study tour to all different industries during her undergraduate program and learned what the opportunities were that were available to her. I thought I wanted to do that. I didn't have that chance. And finally, when you heard Justin Sanchez speaking about national labs that are also part of Batel's work, they offer internships that are phenomenal to students that lead not just to a summer experience, but to a long-term job. And I just wanted to jump on what Janine was saying earlier about our NSF grant with Morgan State, Jackson State, and North Carolina A&T. That will develop, through our Atlas Jobs platform, online mentoring and a summer STEM institute for mentoring training in inclusive mentoring practices. So we're looking forward to going through that project for the next 5 years. Let's see what else. And lastly, on post-secondary opportunities that you may all know, one of our long-standing partners is Abbott, and they have a high school internship that isn't just about coming in and going out. It keeps those students engaged and also gives them opportunities to present at conferences about their experiences. Dallas College has an employer resource center, and I did speak to the lead for that while I was here, or a colleague from Dallas College, and she can speak to you further. I think Sanjay is here somewhere. He can tell you more about the University of Maryland, Baltimore County's pipeline programs, which he spoke about on a panel yesterday. And Boston University has a STEM Pathways program to help students really encourage them to sustain their interest in STEM. And finally, when we talk about micro-credentials and what does it take to be a bioindustrial manufacturing technician or a job like that, the Bioscience Core Skills Institute is offering an assessment program that helps students complete a credential that they can show an employer without a degree what they are capable of in order to secure a position with that firm. And we really appreciate all of the partners on these slides because they are you, and thank you to all of you. Now, to talk about the trends that are impacting the STEM landscape, we've already heard what some of the trends are, and you know them, but just to point them out, automation and robotics is taking the lead. And one of the biggest companies in synthetic biology, Ginkgo Bioworks in Boston, they have one room with 300 robots in it running the delivery of their product in developing molecules, all automated, so that only 2 or 3 humans are actually working in the same room. AI is something we are training students on as we speak in rapid form so that they will be prepared for not just the kinds of work that they're doing now, but for the future. XR and VR and AR are all taking the lead in new methods for training in the workplace as well as in the education classroom. And access to shared workspaces where you don't have to build a lab yourself, but you can share a lab that's already built with the resources your students need. Those things are taking over in saving money, being cost effective, and efficient. Some of our panelists might have mentioned cybersecurity training as a new trend. It's not really new, but it's very needed, as well as training in bioindustrial manufacturing industry jobs and biotechnological jobs. There's a lot of funding from NSF that's going into that through ATE grants for biotechnology, but I think there's a need for even more in order to meet the demand of the workforce. And also data science positions that I think we heard a little bit about data science needs from our insurance colleagues. That's something that students may not realize can launch them into a career in NASA, in other fields. Anything to do with data science is really what the future is in need of. So thank you to all of those members of STEMconnector, STEMx, and our Million Women Mentors. And I think many of you are listed on this slide, and if you're not, we hope to get you on this slide so that we can actually recognize you and, as Ted said, put you on our website and put your programs out to amplify your work. And I'm just going to close because I did start out saying, I think, building on Janine's comment, that I personally am an evaluator of programs for many federal funded projects. And with an evaluation, you have to have a goal that you're trying to evaluate. So one framework that we are building at STEMconnector is a conceptual framework for enhancing the STEM economy. And if you've written a grant, you'll see a logic model similar to this is required for many federal grants. But why I wanted to put it up there is because when we're thinking of what we want to do, we also have to have the end in mind. What are the outcomes that we want to measure? How do we want to track what we're doing? What do we expect to make for impact? And working together, we can have a collective impact that supersedes any project that we could do by ourselves. So I'm putting this up just as a beginning for a framework to think about how can we work together to make a very strong and measurable collective impact in the STEM workforce. And I hope you'll think about that when you write your little sticky note on why we all belong in STEM and put it on our board. So thank you, everyone.